Welcome to Making a Murderer, Rubberducky YouTube channel. Early life of Steven Avery. This young man is Steven Avery, who was born in Manitowoc County, Wisconsin, in 1962. His family has operated the Avery Salvage Yard on the 40-acre property since 1965. Steven has two brothers, Chuck and Earl, and a sister, Barbara. All attended the public school near Mishcot and Manitowoc. According to one of his lawyers in 1985, school records showed that his intelligence quotient was 70 and that he was barely functioning in school, which may have been the reason that Steven quit. However, it led to an early conviction as well. In 1981, at only 18 years old, Avery was convicted of burglarizing a bar with a friend. After serving only 10 months of a 2-year sentence in Manitowoc County Jail, he was released on probation in order to pay restitution. In 1982, two men admitted that at Avery's suggestion, they threw Avery's cat in the bonfire and then watched it burn until it died. Avery had poured gas and oil on it. Avery was found guilty of animal cruelty and was jailed until August 1983. He was quoted as saying, "I was young and stupid and hanging out with the wrong people," Avery said later after his first two incarcerations. But then things got real good. Early family life started. In 1982, Steven marries Lori Matheson, who was a single mother. They had 4 children together, Rachel, Jenny, and twins, Steven Jr. and Will. Steven's family expressed this was the happiest time they had ever seen him when his 2 boys were born, his twin sons. But it didn't last long, because before you knew it, there was early family problems. But not with his wife. In 1985, Avery ran his cousin's car off the side of the road. After Sandra Morris pulled over, Avery pointed a gun at her. Avery was very upset that she had been spreading vicious rumors about him, including exposing himself in the front yard and masturbating, which was as he stated, completely untrue. Avery maintained that the gun was not loaded and that he was simply trying to stop her from spreading the rumors. He was sentenced to 6 years for endangering safety while evincing a depraved mind and possession of a firearm, which is a felony charge. And it only goes worse from there. Soon he found himself a case of mistaken identity. When this beautiful woman named Penny Bernstein, in July of '85, was brutally attacked and sexually assaulted while jogging on a Lake Michigan beach. After Manitowoc sheriff and deputies, who were also very good friends with Sandra Morris, worked with Penny, Steven Avery was arrested after she picked him from a photo lineup and later from a live lineup. Mrs. Bernstein's fine candy store. In 1932, Joe Bernstein settled in Manitowoc and opened Bernstein's Candies at its present location. He operated the store until his retirement in 1958, when he sold the store to his son, Richard Bernstein. Richard and his wife operated the store until late 1983, when their son, Tom, returned to Manitowoc to continue the Bernstein candy tradition with his beautiful wife, Penny. The Bernstein family was living the American dream in the heartland of Wisconsin. Then the sexual assault happened on Penny, and her life was changed forever. Robert Herman. He was one. These are all the individuals you need to learn. These are the people involved. Mark Rohr, Assistant DA. Kim Peterson, in 2002, he was the sheriff. Mike Bushman comes out of retirement in 2005. Judy Dvorak, really good friends with Sandra Morris, helps Penny identify the victim. And then you have the three. You've got Gene Koosh, who drew the paperwork and the pictures. He's the artist that drew the mugshot of Steven. Dennis Vogel was the DA. He knew all about Gregory Allen. And then you have Tom Kukurik, 1985 sheriff. They've all convinced her, this poor woman, that who her rapist was Steven Avery. In 1985, at our crime lab, and we have several crime labs in Wisconsin. You may recognize this lady. This is Sherry Culhane. And yes, she also is a lab technician in 2005. But let's stay on the 1985 case. Sherry Culhane testified for the prosecution in Avery's case in 1985, linking a single hair from Avery's shirt to the rape victim. Culhane said she used a theory called microscopic hair comparison analysis, which is more open to personal interpretation and is no longer used anymore. After that, you have to realize there were 16 eyewitnesses. Even though he was 40 miles away in Green Bay shortly after the attack, he had time-stamped store receipt that he had been there, and 16 eyewitnesses confirming his alibi for every moment of the day. He had loaded up his twins and his wife and the kids, and they had went Green Bay shopping. However, it didn't matter. The alibi didn't count. Steven Avery was convicted on the testimony of Penny Bernstein and the single hair misidentified by Sherry Culhane at the Wisconsin State Crime Lab. Although he had the 16 witnesses, he was still convicted of rape and attempted murder and then sentenced to 32 years in prison. Appealing to higher courts in 1987 was denied. Steven found himself guilty in a horrible place for something he had never done. He had never even thought of doing. He was found guilty, accused of attacking a 36-year-old Manitowoc woman as she jogged along the Lake Michigan shore, and was convicted of charges stemming from the July 29 assault. A circuit court jury found Avery 23 of Rural Maryville guilty of attempted first-degree murder, first-degree sexual assault, and false imprisonment. Judge Fred Hazelwood said he would make announcements early next week on motions in the case and the pre-sentence investigation. Avery had been held 4.5 months after being denied bail, his lawyer, and phone calls. The woman testified she was attacked while jogging along the lake of the Michigan shoreline of the two rivers. Almost 10 years passed when in 1995, Brown County called. That call in 1985 rang in from a detective from Brown County, and they called Manitowoc County Jail and told Deputy Andy Colburn that an inmate named Gregory Allen had admitted to committing a sexual assault years ago in Manitowoc County and that someone else was in jail for it. Deputy Colburn forwarded the call to the detectives. Later, the deputies recall Sheriff Kukurik telling them, we already have the right guy, don't concern yourself with it. Poor Steven, after 10 years of being wrongfully convicted already in 1995. Why did they target him? Well, you have Judy Dvorak, former sheriff deputy. Dvorak had a direct role in the botched Penny Bernson rape investigation in 1985. Dvorak made up her mind that the rape victim's description of her attacker sounded like Avery, who was Dvorak's neighbor at the time. Dvorak would reveal how she despised Avery, who had no history of sexual violence at all, and also had a solid alibi to account for his whereabouts at the time of the rape. Then you got Andrew Colburn. Now, he didn't work in 1985, but he still plays a part. He was a sheriff sergeant. When Colburn worked in the county jail in 1995, he was the one that had received that Brown County call. And he was told they believed he had an inmate in Green Bay Jail, now known to be Gregory Allen, who committed the rape in Manitowoc County that someone else was in prison for. Colburn and his supervisors decided not to vigorously pursue the matter at all. Then you have Gene Couché. He's a retired chief investigator. Couché drew the composite that resulted in Avery's arrest and conviction in the 1985 rape case. Other sheriff deputies suggested Couché used a recent jail mugshot of Avery to trace the composite. The sketch was shown to the rape victim, who agreed it did resemble her attacker, Kenneth Peterson and James Link. So James Link, detective lieutenant, in 2003, Link and Colburn met privately with Sheriff Peterson to discuss previously withheld information that might have sparked Avery's exoneration from prison 8 years sooner. After the meeting, Colburn and Link wrote up separate reports that the sheriff put into his agency's sealed vault. The matter was never discussed any further. Kenneth Peterson, sheriff at the time of Manitowoc County in 1985, was a sergeant who erroneously arrested Avery for the rape that Gregory Allen had committed. He was sheriff at the time of Avery's 2003 exoneration when Avery was arrested for murdering Halbach, whose bones were found in the burn pit outside Avery's bedroom. Allegedly, Peterson told a Green Bay TV station it would have been a whole lot easier to eliminate Avery than it would have been to frame him. His adult life in prison, 1995, it wasn't just the call. There was new DNA testing. Not only did they receive a call from Brown County alerting them to a possible alternate suspect, but also in 1985, after losing his appeals, a petition for DNA testing was granted and showed that scrapings taken from Bernson's fingernails contained the DNA of an unknown individual. The tests were unable to eliminate Avery, however, and motion for a new trial was denied by Judge Hazelwood. (2002) New DNA testing. At the time Bernson was attacked, Gregory Allen, 32, was a suspect in several prowling cases. An attempted break and entering followed a window peeking incident. Police authorized surveillance of Allen 12 days prior to the attack on Burnson, but on the day of the attack, their surveillance was limited to one check on Allen's location. Allen bore a striking resemblance to Avery. In April of 2002, attorneys for the Wisconsin Innocent Project at the University of Wisconsin obtained a court order for DNA testing of 13 pubic hairs recovered from Miss Burnson at the time of the crime. Now what's interesting is Dennis Vogel prosecuted Gregory Allen in 1983, 2 years prior to Steven. He was well aware of who Gregory Allen was. So when that Brown County call came through, he would have known the name, and they did say the name, Gregory Allen. August 2nd, 1983, Gregory A. Allen suddenly comes up over the sand dunes along the Lake Michigan shoreline in Two Rivers, the same beach that Penny had been raped at, or attempted rape, and starts stalking a woman walking in front of him. He pulls his shorts down, and he begins to masturbate, and then lunges at the woman, who gets away. Allen later calls the woman twice at her home and asks her to drop the charges against him. You got it. The prosecutor against Allen is Dennis Vogel, the same one that prosecutes Steven in 1985. And the charges were reduced on Gregory Allen from a decent exposure to disorderly conduct. Now, luck would have it that in 2003 we get a CODIS match. And none other, you've got to guess a name by now, almost a year and a half later, on September 10th, 2003, the Wisconsin State Crime Lab tech Sherry Culhane reported that the hair belonged to none other than Gregory Allen. The link was made by submitting the DNA profile from the hair, which was not Steven Avery's, to the FBI DNA CODIS. The profile matched to Allen, whose profile was in the CODIS because by then he was serving a 60-year prison term for a sexual assault in Green Bay that had occurred after the attack on Burnson. So they left him out, and he committed more crimes. However, this was the best news ever. We have a homecoming. On September 11th, 2003, Avery was released. By that time, unfortunately, his wife had divorced him and taken the children, and he was estranged from his family. Most of his adult life was spent in prison, and now he was free to begin a new life. He had nothing to his name, and his name was ruined by the wrongful conviction.